Sheen Panel Service.
Some big insurers will send your damaged car to one of their repairers, who won't give you an accident replacement vehicle or might use non-genuine parts. When buying car insurance, make sure you have a choice of repairer, so you can call Sheen Panel Service. sheengroup.com.au.
Nice to have Dr Michael Mosley back in the studio, author of The Clever Guts Diet. Doc, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Hi there.
You were just doing a miming game with my on-air partner.
I was just showing him my pill camera, which is a little camera here, which a while back ago I swallowed so I could have a look inside my own guts.
And what did you find?
At that occasion, I found a tapeworm because I'd got myself infected with a tapeworm to study the effects on my body. So if you Google Michael Mosley tapeworm, you can see the tapeworm in situ inside my guts, taken by this very same camera.
How did it get in there?
I went off to Nairobi and we cut off the tongue of a dead cow, removed the tapeworm cysts, and then I swallowed them.
Oh. What do you have with that? White wine or red wine?
Nice little glass of Chardonnay washes it down nicely. Yeah.
Hey, the gut is now very much the focus of a lot of your work, but people are seeing that the gut itself is very, very important. What are the things that people should eat? For example, Burns and I am unaware of the status of dairy. What is the current status of dairy?
Actually, I think it's pretty healthy. I go for full-fat dairy myself, particularly things like yogurt, because yogurt is it's a fermented food, so it's full of living bacteria, things like lactobacillus and things like that, bifidobacterium, and these are really healthy for the gut, because you imagine that your gut is a bit like a rainforest. It's got about 1,000 different species down there. There's 1 to 2 kilos. There's 100 trillion microbes down there. That is one followed by 14 zeros. You are half bacterian, half human from that point of view.
You like the idea of fermented foods, don't you? And you recommend, if you're going to eat any dairy, it's got to be yogurt, which is fermented, and blue cheese.
Yeah, blue cheese, very good smelly cheese.
Gorgonzola, for example.
If it's smelly, that means there's something living in it. The bad news is that, you know, it's all that sort of terrible yogurts which are full with sugar and all sorts of other horrible things. The sugar actually kills the bacteria. So if you've got something which is already sweetened, there's a good chance there's nothing living in it. So what you want is the nice full-fat yogurt. Ideally, look on the side of the packet, see that it's got something living inside it. Have it with some berries or things like that, because berries are unbelievably healthy, good for the brain, and incredibly low in sugar. So the things you want to avoid are too many antibiotics. Australians are kings of the world for consuming antibiotics. You consume more than almost anybody else on the planet.
So they kill all the good stuff in your guts?
Absolutely.
I had antibiotics every day from when I was 5 to when I was 21.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, doctors used to do that, and in Australia they overprescribe like crazy. The other thing they do like crazy is caesarean sections, which is really bad for your biome as well. Bit late for you two guys. I think you've been delivered a while ago, but,
I don't remember.
Yeah, not quite. But the things you want to avoid is too much sugar. Average kid in Australia consumes their own body weight in sugar every year. That's the 5-year-old. So you're still eating far too much sugar. Sugar is overwhelming the biome because we were never, ever designed, if you like, evolved to cope with the amounts of sugar we consume. So even a large glass of orange juice has more sugar in it than your body was ever designed to cope with. So it goes down, it hits the gut bacteria, and then that encourages the growth of some of the bad ones. So too many antibiotics. Antibiotics can basically alter your biome for up to 2 years.
Right.
So particularly as a kid, really bad. Obviously, if you absolutely have to have them. But I would recommend you then have fermented foods with it. That's what the experts say.
Right. I read recently, and may well be you, of the health benefits for your gut of drinking about 20 mils of extra virgin olive oil a day.
Absolutely. Well, olive oil, I wouldn't necessarily drink the stuff, but I'd certainly splash it on my veggies and on my salad and things like that. Because in the book I go in, it's kind of got lots of recipes in it because it goes into the science of your gut and all the fascinating stuff around that, but also how to improve it. And it also has lots of recipes because that, I think, is the best way to alter your gut bacteria, is to alter what you eat. And we know when you do that, you can change your biome pretty fast.
Now, we see ads on television and all over the place for prebiotics and probiotics. In other words, you go along to the chemist and there's the fridge full of stuff that says this has got 1 trillion good little things
Yeah.
in it, and all you got to do is swallow a tablet. Well, why don't we do that?
Because they're almost all useless. Basically, what's happened with this field, there's been an explosion in scientific interest. So something like 2,000% more scientific articles being written on the biome in the last 4 years than previously. And that's because it is unbelievably interesting, and it affects pretty well every system in your body. We know that what's going on in your gut affects your brain, stress, sleep. It affects your immune system, therefore whether you get allergies, eczema, asthma, hay fever, plus obviously whether you get an inflamed gut. And lots of people, particularly in their 20s and 30s, eating a terrible diet, beige diet, they get inflamed guts, food intolerances, things like that. So that's kind of what the book is all about. But it's also a warning. And the warning is people are going to be selling you junk. There is a load of really terrible pseudoscience out there. People flogging you. It's like, you go and say, I want a probiotic. It's like going to your doctor and saying, I want a medicine to treat everything. It's just stupid. When you think of it like that, it's just bonkers. And, for example, they sell this stuff with, say, 6 billion units. That sounds a lot. But 6 billion, when you've got 100 trillion microbes down there who are going to fight to the death to kill anything that comes, is nothing. It's like, parachuting in a couple of divisions to take, a heavily fortified German bridge during the Second World War. It's just not going to happen.
What are you going to have for lunch?
What am I going to have for lunch? Well, I haven't had breakfast yet, and that's not because I'm fasting and I'm the 5'2" guy, so I'm a big fan of it. It's just simply I had to get up really early. So for lunch, I'm probably going to have a bit of, I'll probably have a yogurt with some berries, depending on where I am. I'm probably at the airport, so I'll try and find a bit of a salad or something like that. Depends how hungry I am.
If your gut is working for you and doing what it should, what benefits are you going to receive?
Basically, the book is kind of divided into two sections. One is about the science of the gut and what's going on, plus kind of what to do if your gut is healthy. The other section is when your gut's not healthy. How do you restore your gut to a decent shape? Because a lot of people have diarrhea, they have constipation, they have inflammation when they eat certain foods. It deals with the whole tricky area of food intolerances, which are really common. And a lot of this stuff is very, very badly treated by doctors, because when I was at medical school, we learned nothing about nutrition. My son is at medical school. He qualified yesterday as a doctor. He learned nothing. Australian doctors learn nothing. So this is an area which, doctors are kind of should be learning more stuff on. And a lot of doctors in the UK read my books, I'm pleased to say.
You do a lot of air travel, right?
Yeah.
I was just talking to the woman from the publisher. What do you do with jet lag?
Okay, so there's interesting bit of research which shows that if you do a pattern of feast, fast, feast, or rather the other way, fast, feast, fast, 3 days beforehand, what you do is you kind of have a protein-heavy breakfast and things like that on 3 days beforehand. Then you fast, which means you eat 800 calories. Then you go and eat normally, and then you have 800 calories. And then what I do on the airplane is I start eating breakfast at the time of my destination. So if I'm going to Sydney, I would get on the plane, say, in the morning, and I would have breakfast at around 6 o'clock in the evening UK time, which is actually, what you're trying to do is get your body into the time zone. And we know that one of the reasons that you feel terrible about jet lag is because of your gut biome. They did an experiment in which they basically made these students go off and they got jet lagged, and then they took their poo and they put them into these mice. And the mice have sterile guts, and they induced obesity and type 2 diabetes simply by transposing poo from the jet-lagged people into the mice. So jet lag has devastating consequences.
There'd be a bunch of mice that say, you know what, I'd rather they killed us.
They did kill them off.
And, of course, you're going to say, if you're going to avoid jet lag, do not drink alcohol on the plane.
Well, I'm afraid I am going to say that. Certainly minimise your use of alcohol, because it generally ends up with hangovers and terrible things.
Although you are a fan of people drinking red wine, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I'm a big fan of the so-called Mediterranean diet, and that also encompasses drinking a glass or two of red wine with your evening meal. So the alcohol itself is bad for the biome and pretty bad for you. But the red wine in particular, from the skin of the grapes, it's full of these flavonoids and things like that. So they did actually do a study where they got people to drink red wine, white wine, or gin for a couple of weeks, and they found out that drinking the red wine was pretty good for the biome.
Caller wants to know whether he can put honey on your yogurt.
Unfortunately, the honey is kind of just sugar. It has a very similar effect. I was over in New Zealand recently, and they go crazy for, is it Makuna honey? Well, anyway, it's unbelievably expensive stuff.
Manuka.
Manuka.
Blimey. And so the only people buying it were the Chinese. They seem to be the only people who had the money for it. So I'm afraid, no, honey is just kind of sugar. You'd be better off with berries, because berries taste sweet, but they're not really sweet. So
It's got to got a couple of children who love eating berries. So
absolutely, really full of fibre, really full of healthy stuff. And the strawberry has developed almost a technique, if you like, for fooling your senses into thinking it's sweeter than it is, because it doesn't want to kind of have to spend all the energy creating sugar, so you'll eat it. So it produces this smell. It's really, really interesting, the science of berries. But berries I'm a big fan of. Sadly, if you absolutely have to have some sweetener, I'd go for stevia.
The Clever Guts Diet by Dr Michael Mosley. We love catching up with you every time you're in our beautiful city. Go well.
Thank you.